I always used to have trouble with Mother Michaela in Australia because she's Irish, you see, and the Irish, they couldn't, they had to have these masses in secret with the English. So, they've been used for centuries to just have this, a silent, like really silent mass. So nobody, there's somebody to watch to see if the British are going to come. And they're still like that. At Wanganui, you can hear a pin drop. I mean, but it's not liturgical at all. Okay. It's not Dominican at all. And the sisters are working slowly to try to get them to understand that, you can actually say something aloud and loud. But it's not even. So if we could do it, that'd be great. And be very Dominican because it's liturgical. Remember, we're medieval. We're not modern. The modern era begins in the 16th century. Everyone should do that. It doesn't wait until now. We're postmodern now. Okay, I did get very far in my method. I'm going to have to get moved. I was talking about, I was reading St. John of the Cross. That's what I was doing. Oh, spring like crystal, which is faith, okay? And this, I'm just getting to the important part. Oh, spring like crystal, if only on your silvered over faith. He explains this. She calls the propositions and articles of faith a silvered over faith. Because I'm trying to explain this thing of Father Marie Jean, where he's talking about, establish the commerce of friendship with God by faith, and that mental prayer needs revealed truth. And that's what revealed truth is. It's this silvered over faith. It's going to explain that, of faith. She calls it propositions and articles of faith, a silvered over faith. In a society that you would find these the divine truth in human propositions that we attain God. Okay, that's what I'm reading this. It fits perfectly. See, all these people end up saying the same thing, even though it's completely independent, especially if they're Thomist, because it always kind of ends up the same place. Because it's true. And truth is one. To understand this verse, as well as the others, it should be known that faith is compared to silver and the propositions it teaches us, and the truth and substance it contains are compared to gold. This is perfect, St. John of the Cross. It's always, he's got this, he's a poet. And to express the supernatural truths, it really helps to be a poet. He's one of the greatest poets of Spanish language and all. The golden age of Spanish poetry is the 16th century he was writing. So faith is compared to silver in the propositions that it teaches us, and that the truths and substance it contains are compared to gold. Because remember, I told you, the modernists, their favorite thing is, well, you can't express, divine truth. So we each just kind of, that's why they say you can change the formulas. Because you can't express it, see? Get it? I mean, it's just kind of approximation. So we used to say transubstantiation, now we say transpluralization, but neither one of them is really exact, so we couldn't use one or the other. No. The silver overed face does contain the gold of truth. That's the point. For in the next slide, we shall see and enjoy openly this very substance which, clothed and covered with the silver of faith, we now believe. Okay, so it's a beautiful image of what these propositions of faith really are. You can't dispense with them. It's under this silver-covered proposition that the gold is. And you're going to get gold except under the silver-covered propositions. That's why if you reject one single proposition of faith, you cannot be saved. Because the gold is there. And you lose faith if you reject one single proposition of faith, that something is day, you lose eternal life. You made a shipwreck on the faith, as the folks used to call it, which means you drown. Okay. Faith consequently gives us God, but covered with the silver of faith. Yet it does not, for this reason, fail to give him to us truly, just because it's covered with silver. It really gives us. Were someone to give us a gold vase plated with silver, he would not fail to give a gold vase, merely because it was silver-plated. When the bride of the canticle wanted this possession of God, he promised to make her, insofar as possible in this life, gold earrings plated with silver. That's what it says. Canticles, chapter 1, verse 10. It's in the Bible. That's what it means. He explains it. So the Holy Ghost meant gold earrings plated with silver. Remember, C.H. Therese talks about this too. Start the whole, that's strange. You don't plate some, and that's not the plate with silver. It's inlaid with silver. Earrings inlaid with silver. You don't inlay, you put something more, it's more precious what's inlaid, but because, see, it's the silver, which is less precious, which enables us to attain the gold. And you can't attain the gold except through the seated silver. He promised to make her, insofar as possible in his life, gold earrings plated with silver. He thereby promised to give himself to her, but hidden in faith. Okay. So faith. See, that's why we Dominicans is so important for us. Champions of the faith, because he's not just some intellectual game we're finding. It's his eternal life that's at stake when you start messing around with the faith. Okay, so he goes on to bring this back to prayer. In order to do mental prayer, then, faith alone is not enough. Necessary, but it's not enough. As Father Perenelle says, if you have not inquired in order to learn what the divine word contains, your faith makes you adhere to nothing. So you have to have faith, but you have to know what the faith teaches you. People can have faith. Yeah, I believe, but they don't know what they believe. I'm a good Catholic, but I believe. What do you believe? I know what I believe. But that's not going to get you very far. If you have not inquired in order to learn what the divine word contains, your faith makes you adhere to nothing. If you have learned only superficially what it contains, your faith makes you adhere to very little. It's like, again, the Gospel of John, like I said, it's all about faith. That's where you have the man born blind, right? That's all about this. How he comes to see, and there's all this thing with the Jews and all that, and they throw him out. And at the end, our Lord comes to see him, right? You remember what we're talking about with the man? Okay. Chapter 9 of St. John. Our Lord comes to him after he's been thrown out by the Jews, and he says, do you believe in the Son of Man? He says, and who is he, Lord, that I may believe in him? Our Lord responds, you have seen him, and it is he who speaks to you. He said, Lord, I believe, and he worshiped. Remember, we have that during, we read this, I think it's a Friday during, we read this. Well, that's a perfect expression of what faith is. He has the faith already because he says, who is he, Lord, that I may believe in him? So, St. Thomas says, the object of faith, you were laughing the other day, but you'll laugh again. Veritas prima is the first truth. In dicendo. Or in essendo. That is the first truth insofar as it speaks. That's the object of faith, is we believe what we believe because of the first truth that tells us. Okay. The first truth in speaking. We're relying on the witness of the first truth to accept what we believe by faith is because God tells us this. But this also the object of faith is the veritas prima in essendo. That's what we believe is the first truth. That is, being of God. It reveals God to us. What the first truth tells us is the first truth. Get it? We rely on the testimony of first truth. And what does it tell us? Well, it tells us the first truth. Okay. Called the object formal quo, object formal quod. The formal object by which we know something, which is like the light. Light is the object formal quo, a vision. It's by light that we see things. And the object formal quod is what we see, which is color. When you see something, what you're seeing is the color of the thing. That's by which you attain the thing that you see. If it's not colored, you don't see it. What you see is its color. That's what you see. And you see it by the light. And so what the first truth tells us is God's being, veritas prima in essendo. But we know that by God's witness. He's the one who tells us. We know it by believing his testimony. Okay. So that's what happens here, right? Do you believe in the Son of Man? And he says, yeah, I do. So that's the veritas prima in dicendo. It's the witness. I believe whatever you're going to tell me, I believe. I believe in you. And what does he tell them? Well, that's what happens afterwards. Who is he, Lord, that I may believe in him? I'll believe whatever you tell me because you're the veritas prima. And I'll believe the witness, whatever you say. And what does he tell them? Well, it's me. You have seen him, and it is he who speaks to you. What he reveals is himself. We lean on the first truth and his witness to tell us the first truth, which is, it is he who speaks. Okay? So it's all right there in the Gospel of St. John. That's what faith is. Okay. So all this obviously is the very basis of prayer. Because you have, that's what I said at the beginning, to have this commerce of friendship, of charity, it has to be based on faith. You have to know God in order to love him. You have to know him supernaturally in order to love him supernaturally, which is what charity is. So you can't have charity unless you have faith. Which is why we're talking about it. Which is why you have to read. Okay. In order to have this contact with God, which is what prayer is. Okay. See, it all kind of makes sense, right? And I'm not just talking. Now, it's true what St. Teresa of Avila says. What is important is not to think much, but rather to love much. But in order to love God, you have to know him. And also the work of the intelligence in coming to know God is a work of love. You want to know more because you love God. It's the motor. I mean, if you don't want to know God, well, then you don't love him, right? You're not interested in knowing it. Okay. So this intellectual side of Dominican spirituality is just normal. I mean, it can be perverted, and you see that. And I mean, the Novus Ordo Dominicans are often they're just intellectuals. I mean, they're not true Dominicans. Okay. So now that was just preliminary preparation, mortification, and then reading. Now we get to the actual methods, but obviously it depends on the definition, right? When we start to do prayer, we can't forget what it is. Adjurate, sequitur, esse. It depends. The different ways we do prayer depend on the definition, which is this commerce of love with God. Father Eugène writes about this. Too often, unfortunately, these methods are badly understood. Okay, it doesn't mean they're bad. I mean, even these complicated methods, I mean, they're not bad themselves. You just have to understand what they're for. He says, one considers the work of our faculties that these methods require much more than the commerce of friendship to which they must lead up. Remember, the final cause is the cause of causes. That is, the purpose of what you do determines everything else that you do. So if the final cause is this commerce of love, then we mustn't let everything else that we do in order to get there stop us, make us forget about what we're doing. Okay. So the reading, that's right, is not for itself. It's for this intimate commerce of friendship with God. And we mustn't forget that when we start doing mental prayer. And it's easy to do. Well, I've got to do I've got a second prelude and a third. I mean, if I don't do that, then I'm not praying. Well, no. It's just a means to an end. One imagines that to do mental prayer is to construct imaginary scenes, to feel, hear, see something, to have strong impressions, or make profound considerations, or have a truth before one's eyes to contemplate. One concentrates all one's efforts on realizing a certain mode that has been imposed on us or chosen. The accessory has become the essential thing, to the point that one forgets that prayer is an exchange, and that one doesn't even think anymore about God to whom one ought to be speaking. Remember, St. Therese, 8 years old, prayer is to talk to God. So don't let these things complicate that. That's the final cause. But there are means to get there, and you have to take the means normally, especially the beginning. That's what meditation is all about. These things you have to do yourself in order to get to the point where you can have this intimate conversation. And until you're given the gifts to contemplation, you have to take these means. If you don't, you're not going to get there. Okay. But you have to remember where you're trying to get to. That's the point he's making. So there's different kinds of meditation. We'll just look really at the first one, the one that is the normal kind of basic sort of meditator, or what's called meditation. It's also called discursive prayer. Don Bellorger, he wrote a book about prayer. He's a Benedictine. He defines it as thus. Meditative prayer is a mental prayer, so it's not just a vocal prayer. It's meditation, in which the soul tries, with the help of grace, to lift up towards God, right? Essential mentis in Deum, right? That's the fundamental classical definition of prayer, the ascent of the mind to God. So one tries, with the help of grace, to lift up towards God two things: one's intelligence by various considerations, and secondly, one's will by affections, petitions, and pious resolutions. Okay, so we'll go through those elements. Mental prayer. Meditative prayer is a mental prayer in which the soul tries, with the help of grace. See, there's an effort there. Tries. You have to do it yourself. With the help of grace, to lift up towards God one's intelligence by various considerations, one's will by affections, petitions, and pious resolutions. Normally at the beginning, he says, the considerations of the intelligence occupy a large place in prayer at the beginning. The spirit scrutinizes truths, turns ideas around and around in all their possible aspects, in order to penetrate itself with them. Okay? The considerations occupy a large place. The spirit scrutinizes truths, turns ideas around and around, and that's what Bernard does all the time. We listened to him this morning. You know. Oh, we forgot the title. Solomon. What does that mean? Okay. Oh, spins off and starts thinking about it. That's meditation. In order to penetrate itself with that, and these are truths, you think about them, so you penetrate yourself with that. And thus, to provoke affections, petitions, and resolutions. So that's what you're trying to get at, is affections, petitions, and resolutions. The considerations are in order to provoke affections, petitions, and resolutions, which are in the will. Okay. It's an exercise of the will, prayer. The intelligence is just there to provoke that. That's why if the will is going, well, then you don't think anymore. The thinking is only to provoke the will. Which phrase? Yes, meditative prayer has as its goal. Okay, that's what I just said. No, that isn't it. Okay. Has as its goal to penetrate us with the great truths of religion in order to permit us to live by them. Meditative prayer has as its goal to penetrate us with the great truths of religion in order to, see, it's always ordered something else, in order to permit us to live by them. Now in French, it's kind of ambiguous because I translated this in French. De nous permettre d'en vivre, which could also be translated not in order to permit us to live by them, but in order that they might give us life. That's probably closer to the way you read it. De nous permettre d'en vivre. En means of, to live by them. Not by them even according to them, but from them. They make us live. Okay, so we meditate in order to penetrate ourselves with these truths so that they can make us live. Supernatural. Okay. It's like eating. The intellect is like, it chews on these truths so that we can live by them, can give us life. Okay, so the important thing to remember is the considerations of the intellect are for the acts of the will. Affections, petitions, and resolutions. Well, first of all, affections. That's why St. Teresa says, what is important is not to think much, but to love much. And it's exactly true. Which brings us back to what's essential. Prayer is a commerce of friendship. Love. Okay. Petitions. So during mental prayer, yes, we should pray and we should ask for things. There's nothing wrong with that. Especially in spiritual things. But St. Augustine says it's better to pray than to meditate. It's better to pray than to meditate, because meditate is thinking. Praying is different. Then you're engaged. And that brings us closer to God. Even just the fact of asking Him for something brings us closer to Him than just thinking about Him. I remember back when I was in Novus Ordo, I was living in the seminary, and there was a Franciscan who was a seminarian there. He was a funny guy. At Mass, he'd be like this. It was his posture at Mass. And go on. Say, that's, I could do it. No, it's just sort of speculating, watching. It's not right. And finally, resolutions. Don Lahode wrote another book on the ways of mental prayer. It's very common. It's a tan book. I saw someone showed it to me. It's very good. He talks about these resolutions. And he's very strong about this. Not make a resolution during meditation is to abandon the harvest at the very moment one is going to gather it. So what he means is that the fruit of our prayer must manifest itself in our life. I mean, it's a little bit too strong in a way, maybe. I mean, but, there's truth in that. It's the resolution, it's the change in our will that really matters. That's why, this should be the fruit of our prayers, that we actually, our will becomes more united to God, which shows itself in the resolution, to do something. To unite our wills to God. By this intimate contact that Father Jean Maurice talks about, that's going to unite us to God, and our will is going to be more stuck to Him, and so that's going to express itself in resolution, to unite our will more closely to God. But be careful; that's the fruit of prayer. That's going to happen if you really pray. But it's not prayer itself. See, it's at the end. It's the fruit. It's not just something you do well. That that's when I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. That's what's going to happen if you really pray. But that's not prayer. It's a fruit of prayer. Get the difference? It's not just sort of I'm very voluntarist. I'm sorry, say that name was voluntarist. It's the will follows. That's going to happen if you really pray. But that's not what prayer is. Prayer is, okay? Prayer is commune, intimate commerce, friendship with God. As we saw, the important thing is to nourish yourself with God. That's the way that St. Peter of Alicante said it. Where you sit down and you pray. That is. That's what our Lord says, right? You'll sit down with me and sup with me and I with Him. That's what it's all about. And when we do that, well, we're going to be reinvigorated. We're going to be strong, ready to work, and have these virtues, and make these resolutions, etc. But that's the consequence. It's not the essence. All right. So to get into the actual practice of meditation, there's 3 things you do. First thing is to put yourself in the presence of God. Let all who all présence se de Dieu, is what they always say. Right? So let us put ourselves in the presence of God. First thing. And it's the most important thing. And certain methods, that's what constitutes the very essence of prayer. You just stay there. You probably heard the Curé of Ars talks about this peasant who would come into the church every morning before he went go in the field. And he just stay in the church and look at the tabernacles. And the Curé of Ars asked him, what do you do when you're there? Visé is, well, look, you look at me, I look at it. But visé is not just look, it's like, fix, look, fix it. Sort of like aiming or something. You me vis, je le vis, you me vis. That's what prayer is. That's the first part. That's as far as this present God. And that's perfect. That's good. I was listening to a recording. Oh yeah, it was a Père Millien. This Jesuit. No, I'm sorry. Pardon me. Dominican I was talking about before. And he quotes a story in the desert. There's a father's thing with St. Anthony. God revealed to St. Anthony that there was somebody, who was more advanced than he was at prayer. And so always, so I can go and, ask them what to do. Said, God, show him, well, okay, go into this village. It's a shoemaker. He said, what do you do? Yeah. I said, tell me what you do. Work. family, go to church. Je le vis, il me vise. See, Dominicans, we have to be careful not to get too complicated. Our tendency. That's why St. Thomas at the end said, well, I can't do that theology stuff. It's like straw. Because that's what St. Jean Vianney, he describes prayer. One puts oneself before God, opens one's heart to him, and enjoys his presence. So this is the first part, and then that's as far as you go. He would go. Putting oneself in the presence of God, well, that was prayer. One puts oneself before God, opens one's heart to him, and enjoys his presence. That is the best form of prayer there is. And that's what this peasant did. Je le lis. Okay. But, usually, most of us, go on, with this. We're not being at the stage out of career bars, and we have to continue, okay? We do. That's the second part. It's called the body of the meditation. Now, the example I always give about this, it's like lighting a fire. Are any scouts here? You ever been scouts? Scout? Okay. Well, you know all about this. Lighting fires, right? It's a big deal. Well, that's kind of what prayer is like. You want to light the fire of your will, your heart. That's what we said. It's commerce, friendship with God. But it doesn't happen, usually, automatically, especially at the beginning. You've got to light the fire. And you light the fire with these considerations in order to provoke affections, etc. So to do that, you just take a text. You prepare before your meditation, right? You've got some text that you've read somewhere before, or you think, well, take the liturgy, for example, take the text that matters. That's often a very good thing to do. It's very Dominican to that, liturgical prayer. And you read it. And then think about it. And hopefully the fire will start. You start to pray. It's better to pray than to meditate, right? The whole point of meditating is to start to pray. And then once you start to pray, well, you don't have to think anymore. So it's like lighting a fire. These matches are the considerations that you have like to text. You have the text, so the match is your consideration. You think about it with this thing, and you try to get it going. Doesn't go well with this. Light another match until it gets going. Sometimes you'll spend your whole meditation just lighting matches. A pile of matches at the end. It's okay. But the point is, it's silly once the fire's going to keep lighting matches. I mean, it's the fire's going. Just stop the matches. It's the point of the matches is the fire. You might have to add some branches or some piece of wood, even some logs after a while to do it. But that's the point. It's the fire. You just don't keep going. You've heard of Blessed Elizabeth of the Trinity, right? Well, there was this Dominican called Fair Valet who used to go and, was very well known. Well, to them and shoot off these things. Kilometer. Why did they stop? He goes, all right. She's already, we have had enough. I mean, we've already, you've done your job. What you've given us is plenty to make, lift our minds up to God. But just stop. Well, those are Carmelites. That's what they are. They just take off like that. But So, you have to find a text that helps you. And you can stay on a text for a long time, sometimes for years even. I remember for a long time, I was just taking the St. John of the Cross that it was reading, spiritual reading. There'd be things there. Well, there we go. No problem. But sometimes it's not like that at all. Okay, you're looking desperately for something. But that's why it's important to read, so that you can find something that will help you to pray. Okay. Gotta find the truth. As I say in French, this thing that just, the truth. Thing that works. It's different for everybody, okay? And it's different for the same person at different times. You learn it by doing it. It's like riding a bicycle. Okay? Just, the main thing is to have, to search with it, your commerce with God. And if you do, well, you'll find it. And you'll find, the text of any Sancti Spiritus, the sequence of Mass Medicals. That's something often I use that just at the beginning of the prayer to start praying. Because it's a beautiful prayer. And it's a prayer, I'm asking the Holy Ghost to come and help. So good way to start. But like I said, maybe it's personally you decide what you want to do. But it's by experience. You have to do it. That's why you have to have. That's why it's, we say, do your 15 minutes at least of mental prayer every day. Just be faithful to it, even if it doesn't work. And the great principle that St. John of the Cross puts it, he quotes somebody, I don't remember where it comes in. Quod sapit nutrit. What has tastes good, it nourishes you. So when you a text, you have something, it tastes good to you, well, then that's nourishing you. It's not a matter of just, having consolations of prayer, right? That's not what it means. But nevertheless, it's true. What quod sapit nutrit. You're not being nourished with something if you just, doesn't say anything to you. And sometimes that happens again, and you just have to keep going, and God can do that to you. Let's try you to see if you're really going to look for him. You have to look. Sometimes he just disappears. The Count of Canticles, the whole part of it's about that. The spouse is there, and then you open the door, and he's gone. And he does that on purpose, so that you'll seek him. It's tough to pray, okay? That's why. Well, the Cyprian always says, to be a Carmelite, you got to be a bulldozer. You got to be tough. You got to have a will for God and to go over those obstacles. John Toller is funny. He talks about, he's really funny. Read it. He's just, some very entertaining for those nuns and Germany that's preaching here. He talks, the parable of the woman that's attended the drachma, the lost drachma. See, that's an example. See, that's one of his examples of mental prayer. And he talks about this woman who's looking for this drachma. He says that's what it's like when you're, looking for God. Mental prayer. She's, she's throwing things all over the house, looking for it. Stupid drachma. So that's what he looks like. Prayer's like, you're looking and you can't find it, but you're still looking. And then you find it. The dog, when his master comes, wait, and then he's there. Right? That's what it's like.